Hey,
Hello!
we're finally here.
We made it. We made it. We've finally done it. For anybody watching, Em's and mine's diaries are like, so this is mega. We've come together for a very, very special conversation, and one that actually we've been wanting to have for a very long time, and one that we think is going to add a lot of value to anyone watching. And we've actually, interestingly, kind of gravitated to talking about this being this kind of strong, not skinny movement. I'm going to say something really controversial. I have a problem with that statement. How do you feel about that statement?
I think I have a problem with it too. And we didn't discuss this in advance, so we're aligned. Imagine that. But I think it's, once again, it's just dichotomous thinking, and it's positioning one thing as better over another and focusing in on body shape and size. What were you going to say?
That was exactly what I was going to say. And I think we're in a little bit of danger of implying that people in a skinny or a smaller body can't be strong either. And that I have a problem with, because some people are in a smaller body and are incredibly strong or incredibly powerful. So yeah, I do think it's important that we use it, because I think it's going to help people that are seeking out this kind of subject, like, find this content. So I think that's why I just wanted to tail that off up front, that actually we're not necessarily saying strong is better than skinny, but we know for anyone who finds this content, you've probably found it through a hashtag or something that's helped you. You're trying to connect with this idea that you want to be focusing on strength rather than being smaller. So it was quite important to me that I knew we would have the same kind of position on that. So
Yeah,
it was putting you on the spot in a good way.
definitely in a good way. And I think what we're really here to discuss is what feeling strong as a female means to us, what that message kind of means right now, in the context of social media and the fitness world, and ultimately how eating more and lifting weights, we believe, can be transformative across so many areas of your life. And that's very much what the Strong Collective stands for. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. I'm going to ask you, where you think some of this comes from, where does it kind of start?
Oh, I mean, there's so much to unpack, and yeah, we'll never, again, another disclaimer, we'll never cover everything in this chat today. But I think if we kind of break it down, one of the realities that I think is important to call out, and it's not to say that this might not be experienced by people of other genders, of course, but I think when we think about women, we've been conditioned over centuries to try to be smaller, quieter, not draw attention to ourselves. It's not only about a physical appearance. And I think you and I have obviously talked a lot about us growing up as a generation where, particularly in our kind of formative years and our teens, this very, very lean aesthetic was what was celebrated, all across the media. But it's not just about the physical side of it. I think it's just this idea that, the saying that women were meant to be seen and not heard, and this, all of these messages, even though we've moved forward a lot, I think we can't underestimate the impact that storyline has on us and how we perceive we should look and how we should behave.
So much of it is subconscious, right? Like, so many of our behaviors that we do that kind of still reinforces that idea is so ingrained, isn't it? It's just we probably say sorry far more than the opposite sex.
And you called me out on something that I've tried to be much more mindful of since, which is
the just thing.
The just thing. Yeah, you explain it, because I definitely was guilty of doing that.
I love the just thing, and I can't take credit for this because I actually took this from an amazing female psychologist that I follow on TikTok, whose name escapes me. I think it's Dr. Julie something. She's got a massive following. She's incredible. But she was the one that said we have to stop using just in our language and our sentences. So I'll give you an example, and when I explain this, you'll notice you do it so much more than you realize. When you send an email and you're chasing something at work, you'll say, oh, just wanted to check in, or just following up, and it minimizes the action of what you're doing. Like, stop, take the just out, you don't need it. Instead, you can just say, instead you can say, see, I've just done it. You can say, hello, I'm following up on that conversation we had last week. Can I please check where this action is at? And you could just be much more decisive with your language. And that sounded probably a little bit apologetic. Take it away.
And saying sorry is another one that I catch myself doing, you know, or sorry to bother you, or, you know, apologizing for either stating my opinion or asking for something. And I think sometimes I'm even doing it because I'm trying to soften it. I'm trying to make it feel more appealing. I don't want to annoy that person. And I think, yeah, thinking around language and the choice of language that we use is a big one. And I've looked quite a lot into this idea as well of the notion of self-promotion. That wasn't meant to rhyme.
Love that.
And you know, I've put some content about this out on my Instagram channel in the past, that this idea that women are less likely and less comfortable self-promoting than men. And there's a lot of research behind this. So women provide less favorable assessments of their performance. So even when, you know, they might have completed, and there's been research done where women and men are completing a test, and even if the women have done just as well, if not better than the men, their perception, they will rate that their performance has been lower. And also, one thing I think is really sad is women are more likely to rate their future potential as lower as well. So yeah, I've made a note on that test. Despite men and women performing equally well in this test on average, the male participants rated their performance 33% higher than the females.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think we all have that. I think everybody's got that potential to underestimate their potential, but clearly, like, women are doing that more. Like, it's happening to a greater degree. And what is quite frightening about that is how much we're potentially holding ourselves back from, in terms of progressing in all areas of our life, our careers, or, you know, our relationships, or in the gym, with food. It's just that idea that it's just that idea. Obviously, I'm not saying we can't say the word just ever. Just use it wisely. Stop using it to apologize. But yeah, how much we hold ourselves back from progressing. You said, like, in careers especially, it's a big one.
Yeah, in the workplace, and this is where it's interesting, because in the workplace it's easier to measure the impact this has, because we know on average women are paid less than men for the same roles, and the research shows that people in general who rate their performance more highly are more likely to be hired, and they're more likely to be offered higher pay. So that, I think, is quite tangible. You can see and understand the impact that's having. When we think about the gym, I think it's something that people are becoming more aware of, and I think particularly in the fitness industry it's being talked about a lot more, which is great. But I think a lot of people don't really realize that there are less women in the free weights area.
Yeah,
certainly in all the gyms that I've gone to, and it's something I've paid a lot of attention to and done, you know, I've kind of logged, you know,
market research.
my market research. So yeah, disclaimer, going to a few gyms, doing some market research. But what I noticed is, on average, it is roughly about 10% of you know, people in the free weights area are female. And you know, it's why do you think that is?
I think a lot of that, and this is really sad, and this is just an anecdotal observation, but I think a lot of that is because women generally still feel like the gym is the place to go to lose weight. There's still that perception of trying to pursue weight loss and using the gym as a place to do that. I don't think most women go to the gym to think I'm going to get strong and I'm going to, you know, work on my longevity of my life and my, you know, bone mineral density and my muscle retention or growth. I think it's sadly mostly kind of seen as like a weight loss exercise. So it's just go in and go on a cardio machine or do a HIIT workout. And I see that in my gym. I do actually see quite good like gender equality or balance in my gym, but I generally don't see the women there doing resistance training.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think this plays into, and we can talk more about the gym, but this, what you're saying about this quest for weight loss, it seems to be that, and certainly for me growing up, the goal was always to be as small as possible. And I was thinking about this before, you know, us having this chat, definitely throughout my teens and my 20s and even into my early 30s, I was just striving to be as small as possible, as lean as possible, fit into the smallest size of clothing that I could. And I think that narrative was largely driven by what we've talked about with, you know, in the media. And I was of the Kate, or we both were, the Kate Moss era, the nothing tastes as good as skinny feels, which I know she's since, you know, taken ownership for saying that and sort of retracted it. But that was massive. I still remember that, and I remember, you know, her being all over the magazines, these girl bands, and when, you know, any of these women in girl bands would have some quite significant weight loss, that would all be the before and after photos splashed up. Or if a female gained weight, you know, this body shaming, and we still see that now in the media. So for me, it was always very much about, yes, trying to be as small as possible, and you know, I'll be honest, feeling a sense of validation when I achieved that and people complimented me for that, which makes me so sad to say that now, but it was the case.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I think my journey was ever so slightly different in that actually I had a relatively neutral approach to my body through most of my teenage and then young adult life. Actually, for me, the tipping point was that I did start to exercise. That was actually more of a trigger than anything else. So, you know, I started dancing, my body composition started changing. That then coincided with me having quite an awful spout of a really bad acid reflux. I lost a lot of weight because I just couldn't really eat. And it was very much celebrated. You know, people are like, oh my God, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. When you think about that now, I think that's congratulating somebody for weight loss through illness is possibly one of the most toxic things, toxic behaviors. And that then sort of reinforces this idea that, oh, I look better now than I did then. Okay, great. I'm going to try and maintain this body weight or this size and shape. So then I was like, started running, and then I was going to the gym, but that was all really in pursuit of kind of trying to stay in this mode. And obviously that wasn't going to happen, because once I'd kind of, you know, got medication, I was feeling better, my appetite came back, then, you know, that just, it wouldn't have been a good idea to maintain that body weight. I was just too, you know, I wasn't particularly living a healthful life, let's say, and I developed some disordered eating patterns along the way. So mine all kind of happened in a relatively short period of time, actually, probably really over about 5 or 6 years, not this kind of prolonged effect. I was kind of slightly a bit immune to it, I think, in my younger life, which I'm very grateful for, actually, but it just kind of shows it can still catch up with you. It doesn't have to be this kind of ingrained from being a small child. But I think watching our parents and aunties and, you know, other people, how they behaved around food, or, you know, ideas they had around food, definitely kind of started to reinforce that idea that smaller is the you know, a better way to be.
Yeah, and I do wonder if, you know, you said people were saying they were jealous of you, and I used to have people say to me the classic, oh, you're so lucky you can eat whatever I want. And, you know, I was start thinking, actually the whole point is I'm not eating whatever I want. I'm actually really restricting myself. There's a point in my life when I remember, funnily, I haven't thought about this for years, but I remember I went through a phase where I discovered these kind of low fat ready meals, from a supermarket, I used to eat half of one for a meal and save the other half. So I'd have like half at lunchtime and half at dinner, because I'd become so obsessed with this kind of, I'm only going to eat a certain amount of fat a day. I wasn't even paying attention to calories, which is so funny talking about it now. But, you know, like you mentioned, these sort of quite disordered, you know, behaviors to create that kind of restriction that would enable me to maintain this level of leanness, and then people telling me how lucky I was, and you know, I didn't feel lucky at all at the time, but just had this warped sense of perspective really, and I think definitely I've attached too much self-worth in the past to my appearance. And I mean, and that I think you can do regardless of what shape or size you are. We think about body image, and I guess an important sort of clarification here is that when we talk about body image, we're not talking about how we look, we're talking about our perception of our physical self. And I think, you know, what do you think in terms of body image and what contributes to how people perceive their body in this kind of age of the digital world? Do you think that has an impact?
I think it's reinforcement of these ideas from lots of different places and spaces. So I think social media, I think there's so much good has come from social media. There's so much amazing connection, you know, the ability to be able to connect with somebody that's got a similar interest or hobby on the other side of the planet. I mean, you know, I had a pen pal growing up and that was about it. She lived in Australia, she lived on a llama farm, and the last I heard of her was that they had a bushfire, and I never heard from her again.
Oh my God.
I know, I've just unlocked that memory. It's actually quite sad.
I have a high school pen pal on Facebook now, which is
oh,
but we found each other on Facebook years after, yeah, writing physical letters at school.
I don't even remember her name. It's quite sad, really. But I mean, now obviously, you know, you're kind of connected with people all over the place. But obviously, we know there's dangers of social media, and I think I don't know. I can confidently say I don't think I would have coped well with having social media as a young child. I think even though I had this kind of slightly neutral place in my mind with my body, I just didn't really pay very much attention to it, if I'm honest. But I think if there had been more influences outside of, you know, the magazines, outside of school, outside of, you know, home life and siblings and parents and aunties and uncles, I think that would have almost certainly start to kind of erode my neutrality and probably start to make me pay more attention to something that I hadn't been paying attention to before. So, but I think as powerful an influence as social media is, I think we can't get away from that reinforcement that comes every day from people you interact with, you know, family members telling you, you know, oh, you're looking so much better, or, you know, that we walk into work and somebody's like, oh my God, have you lost weight? You look amazing. You know, that is just stuff we experience on the regs. And I think that probably has greater impact, even in kind of smaller chunks. Like, it doesn't happen every single day, right? But I think because it's from somebody, you know, I think it seems to have more power. And then you start to, of course, think, well, okay, they think I look better, so that's the way I should be, and I don't want to go backwards from that, because I don't want to look like I've failed. I've, you know, taken a backward step. What about you?
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, and I think I've almost had it the opposite, where I have intentionally grown. You know, I made a decision. So I started resistance training. Funnily enough, you were the one who introduced me to that kind of world, and I definitely thrived off that. Once I got over that initial fear, which I very much felt, by the way, of coming into that weights area, I really perceived it that it's just all these big grunting guys, and I felt like I didn't belong there. So I was really lucky I had you to kind of come with me the first few times and hold my hand, and I really got into it. I saw some good progress initially, but I just reached this point where I just knew I was spinning my wheels, and I knew unless I ate more, you know, because I'd started to educate myself a bit at that point, and I understood, okay, really you need to fuel yourself to be able to get stronger. But you know, kind of making that decision to do that was a massive thing. And actually I got a coach, so Dan, funnily enough, who we work with, to actually support me through that process, because it was such a big deal for me. And to kind of embrace, or get to a point of being able to embrace your body changing, getting bigger, clothes stopping fitting, which I think is a big thing as well. I think we place way too much importance on certain garments and clothes sizes and things. But to get back to my point, so I've gone on that journey of actually I want to get stronger, and I understand actually my body's going to change. It is going to be bigger. It doesn't mean that I'm, going to look fat, if we want to use that word. It doesn't mean I'm going to be carrying lots of body fat necessarily, but I'd really pushed forward with that actually during the lockdowns. And I remember finally when offices were opening up again, I remember having this feeling of, oh my God, I'm going to go back to work and everyone's going to think negatively about how my body's changed, because, especially I think for a lot of people in an office environment, like you're saying, those people around you make comments. And I was quite used to people saying these kind of things we've been saying, like, you're lucky, you're really lean, you can, you've got such great self-control. And I remember thinking, and I was really cross with myself for feeling like that. But I had this sort of moment of thinking, oh, they're all going to be talking about behind my back, saying, oh, she's got bigger, even though that was my choice to do that. And I've never felt more comfortable in my skin. I still worried about what other people were going to think.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of natural when you've had people commenting on you being smaller or losing weight to like, nobody's ever really going to go, oh, you've stacked it on. Do you know what I mean? That's just the reality,
unless they're a bodybuilder and they know it's a compliment.
Exactly. They're like, oh, you're looking hench. But that's the thing, it's that idea that like no one's going to say anything, so it kind of just allows you to just indulge that little narrative in your mind, that story that everyone's going to like look at me and think that, and whether or not they do is like almost kind of neither here nor there, but it's like it got into your head, right?
It did, and I shrugged it off and moved on, and ultimately, again, I've done a lot of work on my own body image, and we can touch on some stuff around that and things that other people can do, but I've done a lot of work on that to get to a point where I feel I have ownership over my body, what I choose to put in it, how I choose to use it. But yeah, I just wanted to share that example because it just shows no matter how much resilience you've built, you can still tell yourself those little stories and have those worries about what people are thinking. I think in terms of resistance training was definitely something that changed my mindset a lot, and I'm a big believer, and I talk a lot to my clients about this as well, that I think building physical strength and also the sense of accomplishment of developing a technique and a skill in something, yes, it will change how you look physically. You'll be physically stronger and that will show in your physique, but I think it transfers into so many other areas in terms of how you conduct your relationships, how you might speak up for yourself, how you might self-promote. For me, that confidence that I built in the gym by overcoming that fear has transferred into a lot of areas of my life. I don't know if you've got any thoughts about that or your own experiences.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think like when I started resistance training with weights, my goals were very aesthetic. I kind of hit a point where I was like, I do want to change my body. Like I didn't want to just be smaller, but so my goals were quite aesthetic ones. I don't think I was really thinking.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't like really thinking about health and longevity and all of those things.
That's important too.
Kind of important.
Sorry I interrupted you, but I do think that point is important, that we're not saying that there's anything wrong wanting to change how you look. You just need to understand the reasons why and the bigger stuff behind it, which is your values at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, like I'm okay with acknowledging that was where I was at that time. And interestingly, kind of moving moving away from that, I went and competed. So I did a couple of bikini shows, and I just kind of needed to like tick a bit of a box. That was a massive sense of accomplishment, and that accomplishment came from training and eating in a way that supported that goal. But then what kind of, I had this kind of catastrophic like life turning upside down moment, found myself single, and then when I kind of went back out dating, actually like the where I was in my body at that time was quite an interesting point to be in, where I thought, actually I don't want to, it sounds really crude to say this, but I don't want to like market myself as this like like bikini athlete body. Again, not there's anything wrong with that, but all bikini athletes or all bodybuilders will know you can't stay like that all year round. That's a look for a very specific purpose. So I kind of was then scrambling to like, right, I want to move away from that, because I don't want to kind of almost have this interaction with somebody where they think that that's what they're getting. I like my food. So I
remember us discussing this, and you were saying, you know, what if they look me up on Instagram and then they're scrolling through and they see all the shots from my show, and that's the perception, that's the body that they think, not that they're going to get, because we are not possessions, but that's what they're signing up for. Yeah, I remember. And equally, I remember you not wanting to put guys off. You didn't want, you know, a potential mate to think, oh, well, she won't want to come out and have a burger.
I mean, I did have somebody who matched with me just to tell me that they wouldn't date somebody like me. The audacity.
And this is what's wrong, isn't it?
But that's it. But I found myself, I was going on dates and deliberately ordering the burger, or deliberately ordering like the most calorific thing on the menu to kind of prove a point, which I wouldn't do now, because I wouldn't feel like I needed to prove a point to anybody. I'd just have what I wanted. But I was definitely in that state where I was like trying to send a message, like, I've got a pretty good relationship with food, like I will eat the burger. It was kind of also a bit of this like breakdown of this, I'm not this kind of really ladylike, demure, you know, ultra feminine societal idea of like a perfect woman. I will have burger juice dripping down my arms, and if you're not okay with it, I will see it in your face, and there will not be a second say. This has taken a mad turn, so I'm going to segue
I love
back.
it though. This is the initiation process.
It's the initiation process. Can you stomach?
If you want to date Vic, but if she's not available, she's engaged now by an excellent guy that snapped up the.
Who actually is a vegetarian, so the whole notion of eating a burger I put them off for entirely different reasons.
Okay, so where were we?
Bringing it back. Yeah, I think, you know, just I was very much in a place of like, I'd dieted down, I'd got very lean, I'd had to sacrifice those strength gains for a bit, and actually I just really missed feeling quite strong and capable. So that was my priority, really, to really focus on training in a way that supported that. So I kind of shifted my training style focus. I completely refocused on more like a strength-based cycle, which I was kind of programming for myself at the time. And you know, I just desperately wanted to feel that feeling of like accomplishment in the gym again. Whereas you'll know, when you're very lean, you're in a state of kind of dieting, you don't feel your best when you're training. And I think it's kind of a weird like lesson to get to, isn't it? Where you're like, actually, I prefer feeling that way. I prefer feeling fueled. I prefer feeling fed. I prefer not dreading going into the session, wondering what it's going to feel like, because I know I've just simply not got enough energy in my body to carry me through it in the best possible way.
Totally. And numbers aren't important, but what I would say, to give some context, I think I'm about 13 kilos heavier than I was at that point in time when I made that decision that, you know what, I want to change. I want to lose the fear of food and eat more. And, you know, my weight's fluctuated over that period of the last however many years. But just for context, like, it's amazing how much the scale might change, but how completely irrelevant that is. You know, I think you'd say that to somebody, 13 kilos, oh my God, that's loads. But actually, you know, I don't look drastically different, but I think I look healthier, I feel healthier, I feel stronger. And that, I I think it's important for people to understand that if you want to build some muscle, that probably your scale weight is going to increase, and that's okay. You know, and to try and, because the scale is the thing, isn't it, with clients, whether it's clients with a muscle building goal or a fat loss goal, that I think we all get so wrapped up in what the scale says and clothes sizes and these numbers, and we sort of attach our worth to these specific numbers that represent something about when we felt a certain way at a certain point in our lives. And I think a big thing for me, and you and I talk about this a lot, has been just letting go of all of that.
Yeah.
Track the data because you want the information and you want to see your progress, not because you're going to fixate over what those specific numbers are.
No, you're not comparing it to, oh, the last time I was this weight, I was at this point in my life, or I felt this way. It's definitely about trying to sort of move away from that and just, like you say, just trying to just see it as it's just some data. It's just some information, you know, especially the whole thing, you know, I know we've talked about this until we're blue in the face, but especially looking at like isolated measurements, just completely useless. So again, it's just helping you just track the idea that, you know, what you're working on is changing over time, but you know, everything else, all those other markers of progress, not just the data-based one, pictures and measurements, everything great, also how you feel. People don't and we do this with our clients. We ask our clients actively to reflect on how they're feeling, how their energy levels are, how are they feeling about challenges going on around them, you know, how are they feeling about their body image. And not enough people are tending to do that, so they just get it just packs even more value on the numbers.
Yeah, and I think the things, and that you just mentioning what we check in with our clients on, made me think of where we ask about something they're grateful for as well. And literally yesterday in a client's check-in, I loved that she was talking about how she'd really enjoyed, she and her partner had done loads of gardening. She'd also rearranged her office and she'd moved everything herself, and how normally she'd have asked her partner. And what you said just before about wanting to feel strong and capable, like, stood out to me, because that's something I think we see again come through a lot in the conversations with clients. When you actually dedicate that kind of time for reflection, realizing how great it is to be able to do all these things, like carry loads of bags of shopping upstairs. Just, I love not having to ask anyone for help with physical tasks. Like, just, it's such
I think if you thrive on that feeling of like independence, it just adds that other line of like independence. Where I remember when this is years ago, but I remember when an ex-boyfriend moved out and he refused to let us swap the bedrooms over. Literally the moment he left, I switched the bedrooms over myself. Great big super king mattress, come on, in you go. I mean, I probably could have asked for help in that instance, because it was probably amazing I didn't get an injury trying to, like, honestly, a Super King mattress is ginormous and heavy. Two things that obviously that I could have done with a bit of help there. But yeah, again, that feeling of like, you know, I've achieved this, I've done this, and I probably wouldn't have done that if I'd, you know, not built up a bit of strength. Or maybe I just wouldn't have believed I could have done it. That's a big part of it too.
Definitely. I think, you know, self-belief is a huge factor in this. And again, if we think about women, those stats I was sharing about women, we will rate our performance and our potential less favorably. You do see this play out in a gym scenario as well. And also when we're online coaching people, the number of times that when I've just gently challenged a client to increase the load on a movement, and then the absolute joy when they're with which they're like reporting back the week later that they've absolutely smashed it. I do see this more, I'm sorry to say it, but I do see this more with female than male clients, underestimating the level of physical strength that already exists. And again, then we're holding ourselves back, you know, we're holding ourselves back and we're limiting our potential to make progress in the gym.
I think just pausing on that point, because you mentioned it really briefly earlier when you talked about that time in lockdown in the garage and actually how transformative that was for your lifting. And I know this because we've had this conversation many times before, but about that idea of like holding back any noise and the faces and stuff in order to train with real intensity. And I think that plays into that, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. Yeah, I trained in my garage during lockdown. I was really lucky I had a space to do that, and some equipment, and cobbled together some more at great expense, as anyone into resistance training will know was the case during the lockdowns. But although I was devastated when the gyms closed, honestly, I can say that was such an important time for me, because being in that space alone, I just, cranked the music up. And I just really developed the intensity with which I was training. And I literally found my voice, and I would be, grunting and making noise and celebrating as well, and hyping myself up for lifts, celebrating all of that. And definitely then was able to transfer that into the gym environment when the gyms opened again. But I don't think I would have made the level of progress that I did as quickly as I did if I hadn't had that time where I was just training completely alone and not worrying about what people were thinking. And it taught me a big lesson as well, because I did go back into the gym, and because I got so used to that, that's what I was just doing. And you sort of think, oh God, you look around, you realize nobody's looking, no
one cares.
And if anything, what I've found is, if like with anything in life, if you're going in and you're trying hard and you're making the effort, people have massive respect for that. Doesn't matter how much you're lifting, doesn't matter if people can see that you're putting in the effort and you're working on that continuous improvement. People really respect that. They're not sat, if anything, they might even be jealous. They're certainly not going to be sat thinking you look silly,
judging you. I agree. And I think, we talked about this time and time again, but I think genuinely just paying less attention to how much you're lifting. Obviously you've got to pay attention to it to some degree to that progress element, but not thinking about it, not getting into your head so much about that, but knowing that your form and your intensity and all of those other things that are beyond just the physical load in your hand or on your back or whatever. Again, it like all of that plays into this feeling of like accomplishment, like, oh, I challenge myself to go, to really try and improve my range of motion on a particular movement this week. And again, that's such a good feeling, like, oh, okay, I didn't increase my loading, but I've realized actually I probably do have another inch like to go on my leg press, and like, look how much this has changed. Like, that stuff is huge.
It is huge. And it's so funny, it's really timely, because you just reminded me another client checking yesterday, and I love this. And she said, I'm learning to try everything because I know I probably can do it. And I just love that. I'm like, that reflection that actually I'm starting to just try everything that is there in the programming, even if I might look at it and think, oh God, I can't do that. And actually what she's finding is actually she can.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. So if people are watching this, Vic, and they're thinking,
we hope they are,
maybe they've been dabbling with the kind of idea of wanting to focus more on performance goals in the gym, and obviously but maybe they're holding themselves back a bit because of this fear of eating more food or body shape and size changing. Like, what are some of the kind of things that advice you would give, or things that people can do?
Oh, I think the first one is probably to challenge those thoughts and beliefs, like call yourself out on those thoughts, like ask yourself for the evidence. So if you're thinking, I'm not the sort of person that could do that, like, what evidence do you have for that? Most of the stuff is just stories we've told ourselves. Again, could challenge where it comes from. Maybe it's that somebody's made a flippant comment in the past about, oh, women in the gym or whatever. Like, it's probably something that's got really ingrained way far back, and it's just stayed there. And you're just living that truth instead of what the actual truth could be, which is like, actually, I can go to the gym and do this. So I think a lot of like challenging those thoughts and then reframing it. I think there's definitely something in this idea that I'm going to go in and I'm not going to be very good when I start off, but people forget that's kind of the point.
Of anything new.
We're not supposed to know how to do everything. We're not supposed to be able to just go. We're not programmed to be able to go into the gym and like just know how a piece of equipment works. Like sometimes there's instructions on there, but there's usually other people around, or a gym instructor or somebody that can help you out, or somebody you might know somebody, or maybe you've got a coach. But you know, you're not supposed to have it all figured out. You're not supposed to know how to do every movement. You're not supposed to understand what the perfect form looks like. You're not supposed to understand how all the equipment works. You're not supposed to know any of these things. This is a skill that will build over time. So just leaning into that more, and just kind of celebrating the fact that I'm starting this, and this is the start of an amazing adventure. Document as much as you can at that point as well. I would say definitely document, take videos, take images, take moments, remember moments, because you will look back and you will feel so incredible when you realize how far you can come in actually a quite short space of time sometimes. But yeah, I've rambled. What about you?
I agree with that. I think everything you're saying is spot on about letting go of the stories. You just have to start essentially when it comes to this. And I think the stuff around the nutrition side, and I don't want to make it sound easy by saying just eat more, but you know what, just try eating a bit more. You don't have to. I think there's this misperception that this kind of, and a lot of it comes from the bodybuilding world and this sort of bulking and all this terminology is probably
you've got to have 10 meals lined up.
Very helpful.
Your day.
Just try eating 100 calories more a day and monitor that for a few weeks alongside your training performance, scale weight averages, not things, images most importantly, and just see how you respond to that. So many females I find will just adapt to a change like that, and then we'll put food up and I'll adapt again, and you'll be amazed probably how much scope there actually is there. But you don't have to just jump straight up to that. You just build up gradually and experiment, and obviously this is something we support clients with, but it's that kind of principle anybody can apply, and just take it step by step, break it down. It doesn't have to be this big scary thing. And then I think the other thing alongside all of this, if you are going to be fueling yourself and getting in the gym and really training with a performance goals, is also doing the work on body image alongside that, because I think there's again a misperception that these kind of things can't coexist. It's the same if someone has a fat loss goal. There's this perception that, well, if you want to drop body fat, you can't possibly be getting your body image in a better place. And these things can coexist. So I think working on improving your own body image, and also being more mindful of how you are potentially influencing other people's perception of their body image too with your behaviors.
When you talk about working on body image, can we leave behind like maybe one or two of our very helpful tips that we work with clients, and when we put loads of the stuff out on social media too? But like what's your number one tip? Like what can somebody start doing like today?
Okay, so my number one would definitely be shifting the focus from how your body looks to the things that actually enables you to do and achieve. And quite a good way of tuning into this is practicing gratitude, essentially. And it might be that you journal this and you actually write it down, or it might be you just have a moment in the day, whether it's looking in the mirror in the morning or perhaps on the commute or something, where you just acknowledge one thing that you're grateful to your body for that's nothing at all to do with how it looks. So an example could be just how incredible it is at pumping everything we need around our body and keeping us alive. Or it could be I'm grateful that my body lets me hug people that I love, things like that. I know, I wish I could hug you, but
I know.
But the more, it's like anything as well, it's a habit. It will feel really strange at first and you won't necessarily think you're getting the value from it. But if you can make the commitment to do that every day, it's amazing how much you can start to train your brain to think in a different way about your body.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, all of the above. I think another like quick one is be careful what you're consuming on social media. So anything that's making you feel bad about yourself or making you question your goals or anything, just get rid of it. If you can't unfollow them because it, you know, sometimes it might be a colleague and you don't want to get into like, you don't want to upset somebody. Like there's so many functions now. You can mute people, you can create lists, just curate, just cull, filter, do what you need to do. But try not to consume stuff that's just going to make you feel crap about yourself. And I think some of us have gone through periods in our life where we kind of do that because we think it's going to be motivational. So we'll follow a bunch of people because we're like, oh, that's going to make me feel like I want to kind of get up and go to the gym. Inspo, Fitspo. But you know, and if that stuff is making you feel great, then great. That there's like no problem with like following people that are in a different body shape to you, but just question why you're following somebody. And if you're getting that feeling where something's making you feel bad, like it might just be the case that you just need to close social media for the day and just stop, put the phone in a drawer and just stop yourself from doing it. But you know, maybe if it's happening on more repeated occasions, just, you know, there's all these buttons you can press that make things go away. Start pressing them. Take the power back.
I love that. I think the last thing that would be a nice note to end this on is just this idea as well about the role that we can all play in trying to shift this kind of narrative. And just one sort of nugget for thought is to stop commenting on other people's appearances. And that it's popped up a lot in this conversation, and you were saying it in particular, Vic, about comments from friends and family and things like that. And just we don't need to. And I think we can often we do it with good intention. We think we're paying people a compliment, but you never know. You know, if you're saying to somebody you think they look great because they look bigger or they look smaller, you don't know if that's been their choice. You don't know what the reasons might be behind it. There's so many other things that are way more interesting about us than how we look. So applauding other people's achievements, complimenting their attributes, the characteristics you find aspirational in them. And I think that the more we can just be mindful of this and the way that we behave towards others, the better it's going to be for everyone.
Yeah, I think ask people more questions. You know, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Rather than just launching straight in. If you've noticed somebody's lost weight, then don't have that kind of mode of like, oh wow, you look amazing, you've lost weight. Just like check in with them as a person. And maybe that might open up that conversation. They might say, actually, I've not been very well, and I've kind of lost a lot of weight as a consequence of that. Then you're going to feel so much better not having gone in with, oh, you've lost loads of weight, you look great, and then you realize actually it's because they've been unwell, and that's how that's come about. So yeah, good tip, good leave behind.
Agree. Well, this was fun.
It was fun. I feel like we should say how people can find us if they stumble across this somewhere.
Yes.
In the great world wide web. Thank you if you have found this somewhere. You can find us on Instagram. You can find our coaching channel on Instagram, which is Strong Collective Coaching. We're on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us individually. I'm Nutrition with Vic.
I'm Empower Fitness, EMPOWA.
Not just any old power.
Use a name that was free, but let's put a spin on it.
It was. I love it. It's brought good energy, I think.
Yeah, so look us up, connect with us. We're always happy to offer any help and advice where we can. And if we are not the right people to help you, we can signpost you to people who will be able to. So
if you found this in a space where there's room to like leave a comment or share it on, please do take those actions. We want to hear if there's anything that's really resonated with you or any questions it raises with you. And if you think there's other people that need to hear it and there is some kind of share button, just click it. Start pressing buttons. Press buttons for good.
all the buttons except for the block or mute, you know, because that doesn't apply to us.
No.
Just click.
Yeah.
Jokes. All right. Here's to the next one.
Here's to the next one.
All right. See you soon, my love.
Bye.